I took a look at hundreds of viral short-form videos across all platforms, and I've discovered a 5-step formula, which is actually more like a checklist thinking about it, that will help you get more views, make more money, and be happier. Now, ever since I made the bold claim sort of suggesting that short-form videos are becoming longer and that the quality standards surely rise, lots of other creators have started reaching out, sort of confirming it to me, that 25, 45-second videos have the most potential of blowing up on all platforms. But of course, it's only a small part of the whole game, because what actually matters is making those 25, 45, 60 seconds as best as you can for the viewers. And if you can't manage to keep them engaged, you might as well go back to creating 5-second trends. Not that it's always bad. I'm not saying that. Sometimes it actually could be okay, but let's just put it that way. In 3 years, none of the actual good big creators are gonna do this anymore. Anyway, doing some research, I've discovered something truly mind-blowing, and it's actually the secret between getting just a few views and millions of views. So take a paper and a pen. We're going in deep. This is an Instagram creator called Expired Film Club, almost 350,000 followers on Instagram. A lot more than that, 1.7 million on TikTok. And let's first of all take a look at one of their videos. My nose is going almost 10,000 likes, more than 100,000 views. Pretty good at first glance, right? But remember that for later, for the spicy, unexpected twist. Now, this video is doing actually a lot of the things right, basically the whole formula. Think about it. First of all, some interesting old object enters the frame that seems to be working pretty well all across the board. An old camera. Wow, cool. And yeah, the story kind of unfolds itself up until the point that we get the final images of, you know, what he snapped, what he shot. Stacking curiosity and anticipation on top of each other until the very end. The whole video is basically filled with micro hooks that elevate the story throughout. And it doesn't really get boring, especially for photography enthusiasts, because yeah, they already kind of know what to expect, right? They're invested in that topic, and because of that, they're most likely going to watch the video all the way until the end. Whereas somebody who's just generally interested in these curious kind of things might get a little bored earlier. A little bit by this sort of slow unfolding of events, especially right before, yeah, the reveal of the final images. Yeah, if we take a look at this, there's 4 seconds of nothing happening. Nothing. Now, of course, it's still pretty good. We're nitpicking a little bit. But what if I told you that actually a few very small tweaks on the same video could have and actually did make the difference between this video got 100,000 views and 500,000 views and ultimately almost 10 million views. That's 5 to 100 times more views if I'm not mistaken. I'm not kidding. Let me show you. So this creator, the Expired Camera Club, also went ahead for reasons totally unbeknownst to me and posted the same video to TikTok, but with a very small tweak. Let's see if you can spot it right away. Right. Text. Right? And context. He basically says it in there. Additionally, this is a film camera from 1897, reinforcing the initial curiosity-based hook of the weird object, right? Suddenly, there's context. Then basically the same thing happens. He opens up the camera, but instead of just opening it, he also adds a little backstory to it. I found it at an antique store and it seemed to be in perfect working order, immediately raising questions in people's minds, elevating this whole thing more, right? Basically pushing people to the payoff. You know, what's going to happen? What's going to be the final images? Is he actually going to do it, right? Answering potential questions people have one step at a time. And basically, it's the same thing that he did on Instagram, right? The same principles apply. But because of this whole backstory and context, suddenly the whole thing appeals to a much broader target audience, because even people who are not super into the vintage camera thing right now might find that a lot more interesting just by getting the extra bit of context. Now, he basically did the same video multiple times in a row in just different settings, which is alright, which is another strategy that we're not going to cover today. But the format has pretty much stayed the same all the time. So the most important part you want to keep in mind when creating longer than 20-second videos or 15-second videos is keeping them engaged throughout. Kind of like a movie or a TV show, just on a small scale. For example, would you watch a video or a movie where the beginning started off something like this? This is Sarah, and she got a mystery text from her future self saying, "Whatever you do today, don't take the subway to work." And then she actually doesn't take the subway to work. She just turns around and we never really get to know the answer about the text. The rest of the movie has nothing to do with the awesome, interesting start. Of course, people are gonna drop off at some point, leaving the theater, because it's just not interesting enough, right? The expectations have not been met. Now back to our short form content strategy. We still kind of have one problem. All the best hooks and micro hooks and all these things won't get you anywhere if you don't get this one thing right. The thing that, in my opinion, is even more important, and we can actually see it also work perfectly fine in this video. It's the idea itself. If you think about it, just the topic of making something old, seemingly from a different world, work again and showing the whole process leading up to basically the final image is just such a very good and interesting idea, especially for vintage camera enthusiasts and people who love this kind of thing. And that's something I personally don't see many people usually put a lot of effort in. The ideation process, right? And effort here actually means anything more than 2 minutes of thinking about which trending audio to recreate. Shots fired twice. Again, I'm not saying you should never do it, but just once a week, maybe try to expand your horizon and try something different, more sophisticated. Shots remain fired though, I stand by my words. Of course, what a good idea is heavily depends on your niche, first of all, and our other old friends that you should cherish like nothing else, your target audience. Basically, the people at the end of the line of the screen. So first of all, think of what kind of ideas are appealing to them specifically, right? Target audience. And only then, once you got that, think of how you can keep them and get them hooked for the whole idea and get them to care. Which is, by the way, why I force my students to really dig deep into their whole target audience story, right? Dissecting the psychographics of their target audience, researching what keeps them up at night, right? Things they love, things they hate, for example, because only then you'll be able to, first of all, come up with these good ideas that are actually resonating with your target audience, and then only find ways to make them interesting to your audience, to get them to care. Because the better you know your target audience, the better you know how to make things click with them, the more views and followers you're gonna get, ultimately making everybody happy. Which coincidentally is another part of her whole formula, and I call it the alignment with the viewer, aka the packaging. And the package could be anything from having fancy edits, right, recutting stuff, different quality, to actually spinning the idea that you have in a way that makes your target audience resonate with your content more. Yeah. Or, and that's the other way, spin your content in a way that makes it resonate with a slightly broader audience even. And this is where most people actually go wrong, because sometimes the way people package their idea is not really aligned to get pushed out to what we call a broad audience, aka 50,000 views, 1 million views, actually, thinking about it. Because not only the people, but also the algorithms on pretty much all platforms need to understand who your content's for, and they also need to know how to identify them. Let's say you have a channel about all the interesting things happening in life, whatever that means, and people in your target audience are what you identified as the curious minds. Real example, by the way. I've had a client come to me saying, well, I know my target audience, right? Know my niche, I know all the hooks, I understand them. And something like this is what he came up with. I have to recreate this because it's kind of embarrassing. Did you know about this interesting function about the washing machine that you have? What would you say? Right? Interesting or not, based on everything that we've talked about so far. I'd say only interesting for special kind of people, right? The idea being interesting washing machine facts, something like this. And what he was thinking is what he told me, people who are generally curious about things in life care about things like that. You know, kind of like a yes theory sort of stuff, or a what's inside type of content. He thought, and that's what he told me, people out there see this video, they're like, wow, I just want to know everything about my washing machine. An interesting fact about my washing machine. In my humble opinion, I'm not sure about that. Maybe plumbers might be interested in it. Maybe washing machine enthusiasts, which probably there's not that many out there. But here's the very important thing I want you to understand. Just from this angle alone that we just talked about, think of how any algorithm, right, whether it's the Instagram, the TikTok, or the YouTube one, can figure out who those kind of people are. Right? Probably they identify people searching for washing machine content first. But then again, these people are probably not washing machine enthusiasts. They probably just want to get some information about a certain washing machine because it's broken, or they want to buy a washing machine. So kind of not aligned, kind of hard for the algorithm to also figure that out. who to show it to. Now, here's actually the small switch that we made that actually made a lot of difference. Again, I have to recreate it for some privacy reasons, because I know you guys what you're gonna do with those people. Like last time, I had to go to a funeral. Was that too far?
Okay, so I just found out that I've been doing laundry wrong my whole life, and it's probably the reason why your socks also get mysteriously missing from time to time.
If you think about it, pretty much the same topic, but the idea and the initial hook catering to a way broader audience, right? Making it way more interesting for potentially a lot of more people. And that's what the algorithm really cares about. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, because at this point, I thought I had cracked the case. Spoiler alert. Not really. I thought at this point, all you need to have is a good idea, right? You need the whole hooking people in, stopping the scroll, keeping them engaged, and you need good quality in editing, like we discussed in other videos, which makes sense. But then I remember there's a few more things that are equally as important, like building a community, right? And getting people to come back to your videos, which is why you need to watch this video right there to help you get up to speed with the latest trends on how to exactly do that.